Meeting to order. Let's stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nancy, you want to do roll call?
I hope.
Allen. Here. Valley. Bivens.
Here.
Book.
Here.
Considine.
Present.
Farster.
Present.
Hudson.
Present.
Humphrey.
Here.
Kitson.
Present.
Copine.
Present.
McLean. Minimi.
Here.
Naylor. Present. Nicholson.
Here.
Norberg.
Here.
Palin.
Here.
Sheline.
Here.
Shippert. Present. Scrogstad.
Here.
White. Here. Williams. Wilson.
Here.
Zeman.
Here.
Olson.
Here. Thank you. Move down to announcements. Please mute or turn off your cell phones.
Can't believe that. Perfect timing.
Perfect timing for that. Perfect.
Just a reminder there.
Also, next month's meeting on April 21st, our meeting, we're going to have an open house at the EOC Center at the new courts building at between 4:30 and 6. So the sheriff and Kevin Lally is going to be there, and we'll show everybody, show all the board members around. Also, I've got a sheet that was handed out. The veterans need volunteer drivers needed. You should all have a sheet at your page. Please pass it around or talk to anybody, but he needs some help over there. He asked me to let you know, Mr. Gorman. So move down to the approval of the board members. Everybody get a chance to look at the minutes. Is there any corrections? If none, we'll leave them stand as read. Go to zoning and planning. A, D. Duffy's got a report. In the packet, you'll find a report from zoning that D. Duffy submitted. Also submitted are copies of the minutes from the March 7th Regional Planning Commission meeting. So we'll move on down farther to petitions. Included in the packet are 3 petitions going to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Petition 22-P-1589, petitioner Dustin Burmeister, parcel number 070806-377-018. The other petition is 22-P-1590, petitioner Z-Best, parcel number 02-15-23-300-700. And third petitioner is 22-P-1591. Petition is GSG Wind. Parcel numbers are listed in there. There's multiple ones in there. I would entertain a motion to send all 3 of these petitions to the Zoning Board of Appeals for consideration. Ms. Shippert, Mr. Kitson seconds it. Any discussion? If none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Go down to C, there's no petitions going to the Planning Commission. D, there's no petitions coming from the Zoning Board of Appeals. E, there's no petitions coming from the Planning Commission. We'll go down to item 7, Administrator, a monthly update. Wendy, you want to take that?
I don't have anything, Bob, except what's already on the agenda. Thank you.
Oh, wow. All right. She's all right over there. Thank you, Wendy. Update, any board member comments at this time? Mr. Kitson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On behalf of the board, we'd like to take the opportunity to wish you a happy 39th birthday or the anniversary thereof, whichever it happens to be.
Well, thank you. Thank you. All right. Right. Any other comments? Yes. Any visitors? I have no visitors signed in, so we have no 10 or 5-minute visitors. We'll go down to reports of committee and we'll start with administrative services. Mr. Norberg.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple things I want to report on is the assessor's office / GIS is working on getting back to full staff. They posted a couple jobs and are looking for some help down there. I believe they have 2 or 3, 2.5 openings down there now. We also made a recommendation to finance for the county board stipends that we will discuss. I believe it's Mr. Sheeline will discuss it next month, but just it's in the minutes for everybody to look over beforehand. And that concludes my report.
Any questions for Mr. Norberg? Thank you. Go to Blackhawk Hills Regional Council, Mr. Nicholson.
As I expressed last month, we didn't have a meeting in January, but there is one scheduled for Monday, the 28th, next Monday at 6 p.m. Be there, I'll give a report.
Any questions for Mr. Nicholson? If none, we'll go to Claims Committee. Ms.
Thank you,
Shippert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Claims Committee is moving along very smoothly. We're really getting the flow of things. Department heads are improving on how they're getting things entered. We've still had a few questions and occasionally reject something because supplemental material has not been attached. But yesterday, I believe it was 56 claims that we went through, and we were done in slightly less than an hour.
Wow, awesome.
We've gotten it fine tuned.
Yeah, all right. Any questions for Marilyn? Thank you, Marilyn. I go to Executive Committee. I only have one thing to report. Greg Gates, finally, we got the grant done and mailed off for the $250,000 tuck pointing. So that went out last week. So hopefully we'll hear back on that soon. So we finally got that out the door. We'll go down. That's all I have. We'll go down to finance with Mr. Sheeline.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have the minutes in front of you. Finance Committee met last week, and we have multiple resolutions, as you can see in the agenda. I won't go through those. You can, if you have questions on those, I'll take them when as those come through. Just some things. Sheriff did want to report that, and Dave Glessner's here. Dave, I don't know if you want to say anything in regards to, and then this is probably, we can understand this, that with the increase in fuel prices, we're going to have an increase in, or probably a deficit in that line item in the sheriff's budget. That's probably understandable given the circumstances that I think all of us have a budget deficit when it comes to fuel prices this year.
Absolutely.
So Paula Meyer, the treasurer, reported the following: sales tax collection was roughly 6% over budget, income tax collection 10% over budget, expenses and general fund basically on target, solid waste slightly over budget, public safety collections roughly 10% over budget. So from a budget standpoint for the quarterly, we're in pretty good shape. And if you have any specific questions for Paula, she's in the back of the room, or Paul. We have, and she did, and I want to give kudos to Paula. She put together, and this would be available to any board member that would like to have this. And that is what she called her budget demystifier, or the anatomy of the general ledger number. And basically what this is that if, as we go through the budget, I hate this, that one thing that I don't like, I got my back to the board. As we go through the budget, there are specific numbers that are attached, and when you get your reports, those numbers mean things. And so this budget demystifier that you can get from Paula will explain how those numbers are derived, what they mean, and what departments they go to. So that you as a board member, as you're looking through your monthly or the quarterly financials, you can see very quickly and easily how that all corresponds. So I'd encourage, she provided a copy for all the board members. It's probably something that should be included for all new board members and whatnot to help understand the budget. So I'd encourage you to contact Paula and get a copy of that so that you have that in your materials.
Hey, Jim, if I could just add to that, the good news is you already have it in your onboard resource folder. Not that Paula wouldn't be happy to provide a paper copy, but it's in your resource folder right now, and it'll be a place that you can always know to go to and find it.
You can always tell when the older board members that aren't used to all the resources on board are trying to catch up. Thank you, Wendy, for that reminder. Let's see. Only other thing that I have to report was we did have Chief Justice Jackie Acker came in and talked about and walk through her request for an increased compensation for the county's contract attorneys, and we have it detailed, and that information is in your packet. Just to point out that the total increase that she was looking at was roughly about $18,000, so it was actually a minor request. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Any questions for Mr. Sheeline or Paula? I got one for Paula. How many candy bars did you give out so far? Oh, boy, that's pretty sad. All right. All right. Thanks, Jim. We'll
No,
go-
the chairman didn't get one because the chairman didn't want one. I
Yeah.
could have called in and made the inquiry, but.
All right.
the last one that needs a.
We'll go to F, the Health Department. Ms. White.
We met March 8th and it was actually a really quick meeting. Just some key updates is that we've seen COVID go down significantly.
I can hear you.
Which is good, but just obviously with restrictions apply, there could be some more resurgence, so just keep that in mind. We're able to get some funding from FEMA for reimbursement from COVID, which is great, and I was told the FEMA folks are really helpful. Our meeting notes in your packet with me.
All right. Any questions for Katie? Thank you, Katie. We're down to 911 board, Keen Hudson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Other than the packets already been provided by Director Dallas, she informed me that the report 911 was complete, but they had a phone service outage from March 6th to March 7th. And they were without service, and it took approximately 30 hours before they were able to go back online. Restoration time took 30 hours. Thank you.
I understand they used cell phones to get back online, or what was the?
That I don't know.
I got a call. I think they got them back up and running with some cell phones, I think. Everybody shaking their head, yes. Thank you. All right. Any questions for Mr. Hudson? Thank you, Keen. Go down to properties, planning and zoning, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We met, everything's on the onboard. Few things to report from last month is the architect's been going through the old LEC, getting all the dimensions. We're getting the demolition plans put together. We had somebody come in to give us prices on doing a phase 1 study for abatement. Everything's moving along well. We've got the boiler project in the new courts building, which I see we're going to talk about in a little bit. That's been bid out. We've been working on that. Other than that, that's all I've got for the properties.
We'll touch on them when we come up to them on the thing, but any questions for Mr. Wilson? Thanks, Tom. Go to public safety, health and judicial, Mr. Copine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Public Safety met on March 16th, relatively short meeting. All the information that was covered is in the minutes, in the packet, in the resource. We had an update by the state's attorney, Mr. Boonstra, on the collection of unpaid fines. Quarterly update on dangerous and abandoned properties is kind of an ongoing situation with, I'll call it an advisory committee. Mr. Boonstra, do you have any comment? Don't we have one abandoned property that's in the process of being taken care of right now?
I think there's 2 or 3 that we had that were being worked on right now, and I don't have an update for that.
Okay, all right, thank you. Mr. Scrogstad gave an update on the UTV ordinance. Under old business, the EMA Windows 7 computers replacement proposal has been tabled until next month's meeting. Other than that, we had nothing under new business or executive session, and that's the meeting.
Any questions for Mr. Copine? Thanks, Mike. Go down to Tri-County Opportunity Councils. Marvin's not here, but in the packet, if you look at this, click on the second one. Included in the Tri-County report is a 2022 scholarship announcement. They've got a scholarship in there, so I want to make sure everybody sees that. I'm sorry, I skipped over Mr. Forrester. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Transportation and solid waste.
Chairman, I was unable to attend. I called in. Vice Chairman Considine ran the meeting. Do you have anything new that's not in the minutes, Casey?
Everything from the meetings in the minutes, so.
Well, there was in the meeting. I was home mill. Anyway, you have everything there. Want to take the motion now or so?
I'm taking a motion from Doug to entertain motion to pay claims. Do I have a second? Mr. Kitson, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. We go to tourism, Bill Palin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was unable to attend this month's meeting and I have requested that Mr. Nicholson give the report.
On your desk is the sheet that the executive director puts out. And also on your desk is the Illinois, Northwest Illinois guide. Our ad is on page 21 amongst the rest of the Lee County stuff. I don't know how many people were able to attend the farm toy show in Sublette. Real big deal for Sublette. Rained a lot Saturday, but they had good weather on Sunday. Vendors had a great day, both days, so they're going to be back. We did advertise in that on page 12, and that's on your desk too. Down at the bottom of the second page, will show the openings for everything coming up. And a little blurb there at the Dixon Theater. The grist mill opens up on the 2nd, which is going to be a big deal for us. And other than that, unless somebody has some questions, the hotel motel tax, which is actually January's, which is our slowest month, is 34.40.39. So like I say, any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Nicholson. I'll go down to UCCI, Mr. Parser.
Yeah, on Monday, February 28th, we met. It was by Zoom only. But they decided at the time because of the uptick of the corona, they went to the Zoom. This month, the minutes have not been approved, so I didn't forward those. Becky put in the packet. So they're approved. There's a meeting this coming Monday, the 28th of March. It will be back in Springfield, it'll be live. It's at 9:30 a.m. at the Sagmo Club in Springfield. I will be in Colorado, so if you want to have someone else, or excuse me, in Nebraska, you'd like to have someone else attend for me.
If somebody comes up to me after the meeting, let me know and we'll cover it.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Forster? Thanks, Doug. We'll move down to old business. I've got the 2023 IDOT contract ordinance. I'd entertain a motion to approve the 2023 IDOT contract ordinance for 5311 from lots. It was held over from February. Ms. Shippert, do I have a second? Mr. Nicholson? Any discussion on this? If none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. We'll go down to the boardroom audio video bid. We approved, I think, last month up to 225,000. We come back with a solid bid with all the other bids involved. It comes out to 222,423. It's in the packet. I would entertain a motion to approve the AV technology bid along with the alternate bids for $222,423. Mr. Sheeline moves. Mr. Nicholson seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We'll go down to C, the approval of Teamsters, Local 722 bargaining contract. The contract is actually in your onboard resource folder, so it's not out for the public to see it. If you look in your resource folder, it's in there. I would entertain a motion to approve the Teamsters Local 722 bargaining contract. Mr. Kitson moves. Mr. Farser seconds it. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We'll go down to D, a resolution for wage increase for year 2022, 2023, and 2024. This resolution ratifies a non-union wage increase that was approved in February meeting and will be used as a source document for the Treasurer's Department for the next 2 years. I'd entertain a motion to approve it. Ms. Shippert, Mr. Kitson seconds it. Any discussion on this? No discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We'll go down to new business. All right. Zoning requested that an ordinance for 21-PC-65 that was approved last month be vacated. The special use wording necessary for the ordinance had been omitted. The correct ordinance includes the special use wording. So first of all, I'd entertain a motion to vacate the ordinance that we approved in the February meeting. Mr. Norberg. Mr. Kitson seconds it. So we're going to vacate the ordinance. We laid it over in February, is if I'm correct. So we're going to vacate it. All those in favor to vacate it, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Then now I'd like to entertain a motion to suspend the rules that lays the ordinance over for a month. We want to suspend the rules. Mr. Hudson, do I have a second? Second. Mr. Nicholson seconds it. Any discussion on why we're doing this? We got a first, we got a second, no discussion. This is going to be done by roll call vote. And this is to suspend the rules so we can adopt the ordinance.
White.
Yes.
Wilson. Zeman,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Bivens. Book,
Yes.
Considine,
Yes.
Farster,
Yes.
Hudson,
Yes.
Humphrey,
Yes.
Kitson,
Yes.
Copine,
Yes.
Minimi,
Yes.
Naylor,
Yes.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Norberg,
Yes.
Palin, Sheline,
Yes.
Shippert,
Yes.
Scrogstad,
Yes.
Olson.
Yes. Motion carried. Thank you. Now I entertain a motion to pass the corrected ordinance. Ms. Naylor, Ms. Shippert seconds it. Any discussion? All those in favor of the corrected ordinance signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. We're gonna go down to new business B, ARPA standard allowance. Paul or Paula, would you like to come up and explain what we want to do here? This involves our $6.6 million ARPA funds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So really, maybe I'm going to put in a little levity here and kind of give you an idea of what we're talking about. But really, we've been given an opportunity for this ARPA money to take it all as a standard allocation, all of it. So even though in total, we got 6.6 million, we've already allocated about $1 million of it. We can still take all 6.6 million of this ARPA money and take it as a standard deduction. Now, what that does it gives us the opportunity to have less restrictions on the money. So you can put it into a general, but we would still have it in the accounting system completely by itself. We'd be able to track it completely. You just have less restrictions from what the federal government would want you to do with it. And maybe from a levity standpoint, the easiest way I can do this is if most of you are familiar with March Madness and you've seen some commercials on TV, there's a Capital One commercial out there with a bunch of little 5-year-olds playing basketball, and they have to pick their team. And the first person picked is Charles Barkley. It's a no-brainer, right? So that's really what this is. It's kind of a no-brainer. It still allows us to use the money any way that you guys see fit. It's less restricted. Any questions?
I've got one. So there's 6.6 million roughly. Have we tied any money up already to that? I mean, so if we make a motion, is it 6.6 million or what is the dollar amount the motion
Yeah,
should be?
you'll take the total 6.6, even though we've kind of already appropriated or
Allocated it?
yeah, we have $1 million that we've kind of earmarked for different things, right? But all of that, our first reporting is due at the end of April to the Treasury. So we can take that all now.
But we can do the whole 6.6.
Correct. Our
Exactly.
full amount, because it's actually 10 million, up to 10 million. They're not going to give us 10. They're going to give us the 6.6, but the standard deduction is a total of 10 if you got that much.
How do you want to word it? 6.612 million?
Well, I don't know if we want to say, is it a total amount?
Or just our full ARPA amount
Yeah.
that was received from Treasury.
Is that a motion?
I'll make the motion of taking that as a standard deduction.
The full ARPA amount?
Full
and-
ARPA amount as a standard deduction.
And move in a standard. Mr. Cobain seconds that. Any more discussion or questions? It's less restrictive, less paperwork. I think it's a no-brainer. I think we need to follow through and we can still do the good things we want to do with this.
Yep, you can do everything you still need to do or want to do. Yes.
All right, thank you, Paul.
Yep.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So now we're going to go down to the ARPA funds that community service agency applications. We've got 5 here. Community service applications topic was originally tabled during the March ARPA committee meeting. Mr. Boonstra explained that the ARPA committee had set aside $250,000 for social service agency projects. There was an application process put in place for the agencies requesting these funds, and the 5 agencies completed the application process. These applications were brought before the ARPA committee, and the goal line for the qualification process was moved by requesting additional information. The state's attorney, Boonstra, recommends that these funds be awarded to these agencies because the rules that were set in place at the time. I would entertain a motion to approve the 5 applications and the money. Mr. Sheeline, do I have a second? Mr. Naylor seconds it. Any discussion? Yes, Mr. Norberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Coming out of ARPA committee, we elected to table this to have further discussion. I believe that we were not able to identify these different industries or these different service agencies, all of which are very good, very important to Lee County. But the ARPA committee, this feels like we're succeeding what the ARPA committee originally decided to do. And I would like to make a motion that we table this until next month.
Well, we have a motion on the floor in a second. We're discussing that. So I don't know if he wants to amend his motion or if we want to follow through. If he does not want to amend it. Any more discussion? Yes, Mr. Kitson.
Chairman, forgive me for asking this, but by passing this, do we limit those funds to only those 5 organizations? Or can others come in later and still request funding?
Others can come in later and request funds. This is just the 5 that requested it and went under the guidelines that we had.
That's what I thought. I want to make sure. Thank you.
Ms. Shepard, you had a question?
just didn't understand Mr. Norberg's reason for tabling.
Yeah, so when the ARPA committee did discuss it, we decided to table this in the ARPA committee, yet we're still seeing it in front of us in the county board. I still think the ARPA committee, being part of it, I personally would like to discuss this more in committee.
Decided to table it, but I guess I'm saying, why did you decide to table it?
Why did we decide to table? Because I think we were looking at it as a whole. There's certain things that we wanted to discuss, where the money was coming from, what other additional fundings were out there that they qualified for. Had they received any money from Dixon? Had they applied for any money from Dixon? So I think there's a lot of questions that came up in the conversation in the ARPA meeting when we originally had it, and to allow the 5 agencies there to come so they could answer the question at hand.
Mr. Chairman, this is Wendy, and I don't think you can see me if I raise my hand, so may I be recognized? So we understand that ARPA staff understands that this has been a constant moving target. Not only are the ARPA rules from the federal government changing, but our own philosophies about how the best way to use this money has been changing over time. And so I understand the ARPA committee's hesitation on this. However, I'm strongly urging you to consider passing at least these 5. And I want to give you some examples. The ARPA committee and you all approved a program for these community service agencies, and it was a very specific program. For example, they had to have their applications in between January 10th and February 28th. Notification of a grant award would be made on or about March 15th. Payments would be made on or about April 1st. All grant money had to be expended by March 30th, and then we went into eligibility rules. And at the time we set this up, we did not ask for some of this additional information. So I feel like these agencies filed in good faith. They followed the rules we laid out. And I would be seriously concerned about going back on these 5 right now. If you all want to change the rules going forward, absolutely, I would be in favor of that. But I'm seriously concerned about having to switch gears on these 5 that applied in good faith. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Wendy. Mr. Nicholson.
Yeah, it's just not right that we change the rules in the middle of the game. They complied with our rules. And to renege on that is wrong.
Mr. Book.
Do we know what is the funding levels, or what would the awards for these 5 be?
So we capped it at $10,000 per agency. We said, or we would allocate up to $250,000, but we only had 5 applications. So we're at $50,000 now.
Okay.
Mr. Bivens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There were questions in the ARPA committee, but this also went to the finance committee, which it came out of. At that time, the state's attorney made the recommendation that we passed it, I think in probably stronger terms than that. And I can only say what I said then was that having been a veteran of 22 lawsuits as my time as sheriff, none successful, that if you don't follow the advice of your attorney, you only have yourself to blame.
Absolutely. Ms. Miriam, did you have anything you want to share with us?
Wendy said what I wanted to say, not exactly, but very short. They did what we asked them to do. I think we need to honor our word too. And by the way, as you know, it passed on the finance committee
Sure. We're up against
unanimously.
April 1st timeline, so we need to do something here. Any other comments, questions?
Can you tell us where we're at from a parliamentary procedure perspective? What we're voting on, whether we're voting on a motion to table
We have a motion on the floor.
or to amend, or what, just be clear about what it is we're considering.
Motion is to pass the 5 agencies on here. Am I correct? Miriam,
Pass.
we've got a motion. We're all good. We got a first,
there been a
second, one
second?
discussion. So. Any more discussion? If none, we'll do a roll call vote on this. I can see there's some people both ways, so.
Wilson,
Yes.
Zeman,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Bivens, Book,
Yes.
Considine,
Yes.
Barster,
Yes.
Hudson,
Yes.
Humphrey,
No.
Kitson,
Yes.
Copine,
Yes.
Minimi,
Yes.
Naylor,
Yes.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Norberg,
No.
Palin, Sheline,
Yes.
Shippert,
Yes.
Scrogstad,
Yes.
White, Olson.
Yes.
So 2 noes, 19 yes.
Motion passed. Thanks, Nancy. We'll move down to C, ordinance purchasing policy. I'd entertain a motion to lay this purchasing policy ordinance over until the April meeting. Mr. Kitson, Ms. Shippert, any discussion on this? It's in the packet. Everybody get a chance to look at it? Any questions? If none, all those in favor on laying it over till April, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Go down to D. The resolution currently on file regarding the non-union starting wage was approved and recorded in 2019 and does not reflect the wage increase approved by the county board during the February 22nd, 2022 meeting. This resolution would reflect the changes made last month and bring the record current. I would entertain a motion to approve this resolution. Ms. Shippert, Ms. Allen, any discussion? No discussion on this? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Go to item E. Mr. Sheline, would you read this resolution?
Happy to do that, Mr. Chairman. Just as a little preamble is that we're living in a time that is unprecedented in the last 80 years. We have a situation in Europe that goes back to World War II, that we've seen the type of devastation and the type of challenges that this world has been faced with. And that motivated me that we need, even our little unit of government of Lee County Board, we need to take a stand, in my view, of what's happened in Ukraine and what's been happening. And it goes right to the founding of our country and principles that we hold dear. So in view of that, I wrote the resolution in support of Ukraine, whereas 234 years ago, the Constitution of the United States of America was ratified. It is the longest surviving written charter of government in the world, enshrines the inalienable rights of our citizens, serves to define our government structure, and limits the power of that government over the citizens. It is a beacon of hope and example to all the nations. And whereas the Russian government in all of its bloody history has abused and exploited its own citizenry, performed multiple acts of hegemony against neighboring countries, and has deliberately initiated various acts of genocide resulting in the deaths of millions of people, whose current head is Vladimir Putin, who has made himself a dictator, has suppressed or eliminated opposition in the government, the press, the Russian people. And whereas on February 24th, Vladimir Putin initiated an aggressive act of war by invading the sovereign country of Ukraine, committed multiple crimes against humanity, seized Ukrainian resources, targeted civilian populations, including senior citizens, women, and children, has targeted for assassination the legitimately elected President Vladimir Zelensky. And now therefore be it resolved, the Lee County Board calls upon the Russian government to immediately stop the bombardment of Ukraine and withdraw its forces to pre-war lines and halt any operations against the democratically elected officials of the Ukrainian government. And further be it resolved that the Lee County Board calls upon the United States federal representatives to provide support, military and humanitarian, to the government and people of Ukraine in whatever manner they deem reasonable and appropriate. And further be it resolved, the Lee County Board encourages our citizens to provide support to the people of Ukraine in any manner and amount possible. I move my resolution, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Nicholson seconds it. Any more discussion? Hey, Jim, Chris, I think you guys had an idea about this resolution also. Do you want to talk about this during discussion?
So this is kind of the first step of kind of an idea that I had, and Mr. Norberg and I and Chris kind of fleshed out a little bit. I had the idea of us making some type of donation, humanitarian donation to an agency. And then Chris, as I was discussing the idea with Chris, he came up with, I thought it was a really good idea in regards to coming up with a matching funding program. And Chris, if you want to discuss.
Yes, thank you, Jim. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we initially talked, Jim and I were talking, and he threw out a number of $50,000 that Lee County would donate. And as I sit here and think about it and talking to other people of the community, and even my mom specifically does not know where to send money and send aid. And so I came up with the idea, and we use this in my business world as well, that we'll make matching donations to different organizations. So we talked about putting it out there and trying to collect donations up to $25,000 that would then be matched by Lee County. Because I think there's a lot of people out there that want to financially support this. They just don't know the right means of which to do it. And this allows Lee County, as well as all the citizens and everybody on this board, to be part of the solution.
So in that's the direction we're going. We don't have specifics yet, and we'd also like to possibly leverage participation with the city of Dixon as well, and get some other partners within our area to do the same thing, maybe Amboy and whatnot. So probably what we'd like to do is pass this resolution tonight, and then hopefully next month we'd have something more defined that we can present to the board.
I agree. I think we need to reach out to Dixon, Amboy, Franklin, Ashton, the communities in our neighborhood, and even our businesses in town. I know they're stretched too. Everybody's stretched with COVID, but I think it's a good cause. I think we start by passing this resolution, and then we work out this next month. Any more discussion? Yes, Katie.
I have a question. Is this the committee?
I don't know. I think maybe admin take it up and we'll move it over to, what do you think? What's the best way to? I don't know.
I think it's numbers. I think it should go to finance.
I seen you raise your hand. I don't know if it's that. So anyhow, let's start by passing this resolution, and then we'll go forward. We got a first, a second, we got discussion. Any more discussion? If none, all those in favor and passing this resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Now we'll go down to the drug and alcohol policy at Lots. I'd entertain a motion to approve the new drug and alcohol policy from Lots. Jack Scrogstad makes a motion. Do I have a second? Ms. Naylor, any discussion? This is for Lots and his busing. It's a federal policy, I believe, that we need to adopt. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We'll go down to G, resolution authorizing treasurer's office signature authority. That we're just doing, we're adding, I think Deborah Robertson to this, so that leaves all four of them. We'll do it. I'd entertain a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the treasurer's office signature authority. Mr. Palin? Danielle Allen seconds it. Any discussion? If none, all those in favor for the banking resolution signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Down to H, we have an MOU with the city of Amboy. I'm going to ask Wendy to take this from here and explain what's going on here.
So just a little background, there is a potential development in an area down in, actually, it turns out it's in Marion Township with an Amboy address. The development would straddle two parcels. It's approximately 10 acre, or estimated to be about 10 acres, of which 5 acres is on one parcel and 5 acres is on the other. Normally, that wouldn't be a big deal, except the jurisdiction for the two parcels is different. One of those parcels has jurisdiction by the county and the other one is in the city of Amboy. So the MOU is intended to lay out the provisions of who's going to take the lead with regard to the development and the building permit process. And it also lays out some financial compensation and how that gets split between the two. At this point, the resolution was not included in your packet because the attorneys are still working on finalizing it, and you know how attorneys are. So it's still being finalized, but what we're seeking here tonight from you, after having all of your questions answered, is to authorize the board chairman to sign that MOU when it is finalized by the attorneys, and that would be the city attorneys, obviously, as well as the county here. So to give you an idea specifically, the items we're trying to clarify here is who's going to issue the building permit, who's going to review and approve the construction plans for the project to ensure compliance and oversight, the oversight and inspection of the construction of the project, and lastly, approval of the zoning of the project. So what the city and county have done is gotten together and kind of come to terms with that and agreed that this county will take the lead on all of those things. The county then, in terms of permitting fees, will receive 70% of all the permitting fees, and the city of Dixon, or excuse me, the city of Amboy will receive 30% of the permitting fees. I would entertain or take any questions that you may have, but again, what we're looking for here is just approval to the board chairman to sign it when the final agreement is done.
Let's get a motion on the table and then we'll discuss it. Mr. Norberg, you move. Ms. Shippert seconds it. Now we got some discussion. The split's going to say, like Wendy said, 70-30. We just got some verbiage we need to work out, and we're under some time constraints that needs to be done as soon as we can get it done. I usually like to have the MOU in front of you, so you know what we're voting on. So that's where we're at right now. Charlie, do you want to talk? I think we're just talking about some verbiage in the contract.
Correct. I think everything's kind of worked out. Some of the red line stuff is just a matter of making sure that both sides are protected, I think.
So any discussion or questions?
Yeah, I'm just curious, what's the time constraint? Just what?
I think MRSO wants to go ahead and start the project, and they're waiting on us to decide, and we've been going on about 2 months now, and they're ready to roll.
Makes sense.
I won't let that push me to sign something I'm not comfortable with. I think I'm comfortable with the split. We're just working on some verbiage. Yes, Mr. Norbert.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Olson and I went down to Amboy and did meet with them, and we are in a much better position to do the zoning hearing, to do decommissioning, whatever may be in place. And so that's the reason for the MOU as well, is they're just not positioned as a city to handle some of the planning set forth by this project. So
The proposed property is exactly split between Amboy and the county. You couldn't divide it any more evenly. Mr. Wilson, you had a comment?
The only comment I have, Wendy, as far as the permitting and what have you, we are going to have a third party protection for the county when it comes to the engineering. Is that correct? We're working on those verbiages right now with the zoning department. That's something that needs to be in place so the county has protections for all the engineering and what have you.
So there is a provision in the contract actually that addresses that, Tom. Although again, this is a draft form, so I can share with you what it says, but just know that the attorneys are still working out the legal language. But the parties agree to share in all the engineering expenses associated with the project and necessary to cover all liability. And of course, you know, our idea is that the engineering would be actually paid for by the project developer itself. So.
I think the big push here is they want to know who they're talking to, who they're dealing with, and we want to take the lead and control this from this part forward. Yes, Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is that currently in line with the zoning that it's zoned for, or a special use? How does it fit in with our Lee County Comprehensive Plan? Or is this going to be spot zoning, or how does it work?
Yes, Mr. Norbert.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Dee, but I believe it right now it's zoned as an I-1 and it has to be an I-2 or an I-1 special zone. So when we talk about spot zoning, it's going from an I-1 to an I-2 or an I-1 to a special. So it is already, it's close, but no cigars type of zoning. It won't be spot zoning. Does that answer your question, Charlie or Casey?
Yeah, so it's going from I-2 to I-1 or I-1 to I-2?
1 to 2. It's 2 and it has to go to, I'm looking at. So it'll be a special use in an I-2. There you go.
Thank you.
And the challenge is that Amboy doesn't have an industrial zone in their building code. So there's a lot of challenges that are going on with this project, literally because of the parcel.
We need to get to work on it and get it cleaned up and get it workable. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor of giving the chairman the authority to sign the MOU when it's done, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
One abstention. We need to note that.
Is that Humphrey?
Yes. Thank you. We'll move on to I, the grant opportunity, the multi-use plant path with Dixon and Sauk Valley. I'm going to let Wendy explain that one too.
So this came forward here just very recently. The city of Dixon approached the chairman and inquired as to whether we would want to partner with them on a planning grant to look at a multi-use or what I refer to as a bike path. The information that I shared with a lot of you this week earlier was that it's our understanding that the city of Sterling has a private donor that is going to be developing a bike path from Sterling to Sauk. And Dixon is very much interested in getting furthering or extending that path from Dixon out to Sauk. And so they are interested in, as you all know, this is the time right now when there's a lot of grant money available from the federal government coming down. And so this opportunity came up to the city rather quickly, and they approached Bob and he asked me to attend a meeting. They are seeking most particularly right now to split the cost with us, the county, 50% of the benefit cost analysis. That is estimated. Actually, I've gotten a quote now since I spoke to most of you last week of $10,000. So the city would pay 50%, we would pay 50%. That cost, that benefit cost analysis is required to even apply for the grant. If the grant, and the grant, by the way, has to be approved and sent in by April 14th. So once again, we ended up under a time constraint. Normally, this would have been something I might have started with the Arpa committee on. However, I didn't even meet with the city until after the Arpa committee meeting this month. So what we're looking for is approval for a partnering with the city of Dixon on that planning grant. There is one other piece to that we discussed at the finance committee, and that is that these grants, if you want to be competitive, you would actually put in the grant that you are willing to come up with match dollars. Once again, the city said, this is a project that's been on their radar for some time. They said we would absolutely support 50% of that match if the county were willing to do that. So I bring forward this suggestion and would entertain any questions if anybody has any on this.
Any questions or discussion? I believe that the money, when we go for the grant, I think it's 10%. Is that correct?
Correct.
That the county and the city would have to match 5% each. I think it's $1 million somewhere in there they're looking at. So, any discussion? Yes,
Where
Larry.
will that come from? Will that still come from ARPA money?
And that's the finance chair.
I can't say that it would, Larry, because you all didn't get a chance to an opportunity to discuss that. So that's why I brought it to finance and I'm bringing it to you.
Wendy answered the question well. So yeah, so this is the beginning. I think what the board needs to understand, however, is it's almost in for a penny, in for a pound. Yep. So we need to be aware that the local match is going to be whatever that ends up being down the road, but that's going to be down the road.
I think, Wendy, the county has a park and recreation plan, or what do you call that?
The Greenways Trail Plan is part of our overall Lee County Comprehensive Land Use Plan. And so, yes, this multi-use type of path regionally has been on our radar for some time. And it's also been, of course, on the city of Dixon's radar for some time. I noticed that Greg Gates just walked in the door. He and I talked about this a little earlier this evening. And because I was asking him, what are the odds this would be a successful grant? You never really know. And he pointed out that what grant those that award these grants look at is the regional benefit. And there's a pretty big regional benefit if you think about the bike trails that already exist that could be connected by this planning grant, and small bits that that don't exist, like Page Park out to Sauk, could really expand the bike trail or multi-use path throughout the county and actually the region.
Any other discussion, questions? Yes, Mr. Kitson.
Wendy, do we know, is this proposed to run on state right away, or are they planning to buy more ground all the way out, or what?
Since this grant is a planning grant, that's what we would work through it as part of this process. That is a very good question, however.
I think we got a time crunch on this too. What is the timeline that?
The grant has to be applied for by April 14th. So that again is what hindered me from going directly to ARPA. And obviously you don't write the grant and turn it in 24 hours in advance of the deadline. So work has already begun. The city of Dixon authorized to begin on that because they didn't want to get it down to the crunch time and not have time to actually pull together all the data that's required for the grant application.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to be clear, we're voting for $5,000 for half of the application, but what Mr. Sheeline alluded to, we would be on the hook if the grant was successful for upwards of $500,000. Is that what I'm understanding we're voting on?
No, if it's a 10% of the overall $1 million grant, so we're talking 100,000, we're splitting that with the city 50-50. So at most we'd be talking 50,000 if the grant were to be approved.
And there is a possibility, and I might be talking out of turn with Mr. Gates back there, but there's a possibility there might not be a match to this also, or, but it reduces our, yeah, okay. Reduces our chances of receiving the grant too. Yes.
Well, and I appreciate the comment from Casey, because my comment, I wanted to make sure that we understood that there was going to be a backside to this potentially. We don't know, and we don't know at what point in time, but I didn't want the board to think that, we're approving the $5,000 and that's not it. And I didn't want people to think that, well, that's not the way you explained it to us. So please understand that there is a possibility that down the road, and we don't know when, that we could be asked, the city would come back to us and ask for the local match participation.
Let's get a motion on the floor so we can discuss it some more. But in that motion, do we want to talk about the $5,000 and up to 5% match? So we're tied in, so that gives us some direction to what we can move forward with the city.
If we want that type of flexibility, I'd make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
You need to let everybody know.
Yes. So you want to read that back to me? So we got it right?
Mr. Chairman, I'd make the motion that for the grant opportunity, the multi-use path to Dixon to Sauk Valley Community College, that we would participate in the $5,000 grant application and with an authorization or understanding that commitment may be up to $50,000. And I would make that motion.
Do I have a second? Mr. Nicholson. Now we have some discussion. With that, gives us some parameters so we can go ahead and do that grant by April 14th, just as long as everybody's on board of what we're doing. Yes, Mr. Humphrey.
So I guess the $5,000 is a little bit more palatable than the unknown of what this project might end up becoming and when it would become. I mean, I don't know if anybody's got a crystal ball here, but if we're looking at $50,000 and say that's 2 or 3 years down the road, I mean, that's my holdback here is it sounds like a project that, might help some people out if you're into biking and stuff like that, but not knowing where the money's going to come from, I just got some reservations. It's easy to agree to the 5,000. We know we can probably come up with that in this year's budget, but down the road, it's an unknown.
I just wanted to tie that in because if we apply for that grant, I want everybody aware that's where we're going with that. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that transparency. The money is kind of an issue, but also like the fact this is a third motion that we've had come up that we don't have all the facts in front of us. So we're voting on it kind of blind and we're just hearing about it right now. I think from a transparency perspective, and I understand open meetings and all that, but somehow we need to have this information. I get time crunches, but an email to us, blind carbon copied with this facts and data. So we're in here at this meeting prepared to vote on it and understand what we're voting on would help a lot. That being said, did we reach out to the ARPA committee and get
individually and get their blessing or anything that we could have done to say, yeah, this will come out of ARPA, or is this the first they're hearing of it as well?
Yeah.
So Casey, and to the rest of the board members that may not have discovered it yet, we did implement a new process this month where we have an action request form that gets completed and documentation associated with it. And that is attached in the on the agenda item here. So it gives the kind of the background, Casey, and a little bit of there's a third page there that kind of describes the type of grant it is and what we're talking about doing here. So we described it to the extent that we could. We don't know, whether we'll receive the grant, of course. That's the big unknown, and there's no way to know that in advance.
So it was included somewhat in our packet. I'm not up to the speed on the technology is what you're trying to say politely.
Yeah, thank you, Casey. I appreciate that.
But what's in the packet is not that clear either, but, and I agree, we're asking you guys to do a lot here tonight on unknowns. But I just wanted to know that, we're on the hook once we go down this road. So we're all on the same page. Any more discussion? Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just uncomfortable with the last sentence there. It says, is Lee County willing to provide a portion of the expected local match? And the last sentence says, it gives two examples. If it's 100,000, it's 10%. If it's 200,000, it's 20%. Are we going to leave that language stated that way? Is it going to be a certain amount that we're going to?
I think the motion would, go ahead.
So the reason why I couched the motion, because I understand the hesitancy and uncertainty. I made the motion the way it did so that the motion is clear that our participation is up to the 50% level of local match. If they come down, that gives us certainty that that's the amount that we're passing tonight. If it comes back and the grant is approved and the local match ends up being higher than that, and the ask is that, then we can have the discussion at that point in time whether or not we go. But right now we have the certainty what we're approving tonight is a local match up to $50,000.
Yes. So the total out of pocket county would be 55,000 for this project, just so everybody understands.
Thank you.
Mr. Forster.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My only question was, it's been kicked around here by a few of the board members. Can this come out of ARPA? ARPA committee, no.
In my opinion, I believe so, but I think there's.
It would be, certainly under the standard allowance that you just adopted or have on the agenda here tonight. It certainly could be. It's a matter of whether this board has that philosophy to allocate the money to that.
Thank you very much.
Yes, Mr.
Yeah,
Nicholson.
I believe this trail would be a wonderful thing. It's been kicked around an awful long time. As long as I've been on the board, it's been part of the discussion of people, tourism agencies. Good for tourism. It's good for students at Sauk. And I believe it could be taken out of ARPA under the number one priority we have in tourism. So,
Yeah, I think it matches up well with the ARPA.
yeah, it's a perfect match, really, for what we want.
Any more questions, comments, Ms. Allen?
So, but there's no guarantee tonight on what we're voting on that this is going to come out of ARPA. Correct? So we're saying it could, but.
I would make sure it did if I was the finance chair, but I'm not, so.
There's also no confirmation that the grant would even be awarded.
Yeah, yes. And he could,
Worrying about something that may not even happen.
we could amend the motion if it creates ARPA funds, but I don't know if we want to go down that road, but I do think that it fits the ARPA narrative well. Any other comments, questions? Maybe we better do a roll call on this too. I'm sorry.
Zeman,
No.
Allen,
No.
Bivens, Book,
Yes.
Considine,
Yes.
Barster,
Yes.
Hudson,
Yes.
Humphrey,
No.
Kitson,
Yes.
Copine,
Yes.
Minimi,
No.
Naylor,
Yes.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Norberg,
Yes.
Palin, Sheline,
Yes.
Shippert,
Yes.
Scrogstad,
Yes.
White. Wilson
Yes.
and Olson.
Yes.
It's 4 no. 17 yes.
Motion carried. Thank you. We'll go down to J, conflict attorney compensation. Judge Acker was into finance this last Thursday. Mr. Sheline, do you want to explain the conflict attorney situation?
So, not being the judge,
Yep.
maybe Charlie's better to explanation, but what this is, conflict attorneys, when we have to bring in an outside counsel to try a case, the attorneys have to be paid, and that comes out of the line item budget for the judges, and they have set salary schedule for that. As with all our employees and with the nature of the economy, it's been harder and harder for Chief Judge Acker to find a person that would be willing to do it for the rate that we have been offering. So she had asked for an increase into the set salary for the conflict attorney up to $42,000. This is for 3 individuals. It states that it's for 4, but she's splitting the 4th person into 2. And so the total increase overall in the budget impact is $18,000. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So we got 4 conflict attorneys. We're paying one 42,000 now. The other 3 we're paying 36. And she cannot find replacements. They're quitting on her. And she's going to split one of the conflicts, I believe, from the 42 to 21. Let's get a motion on the floor and then we can discuss it more. Mr. Norberg moves and Mr. Sheline seconds it. But your motion, what would your motion be on this? We need to clarify this motion.
We need to, I'm making a motion that the conflict attorneys, for 3 of them, the salary is up to $42,000.
We need to give her the option to split 1 or 2 to be able to do that in your motion.
Be used at the discretion of Judge Acker.
Yep. Is that doable, Charlie? Okay. Mr. Sheline, do you second that motion? Okay, now we got a motion on the floor and a second. Let's go ahead and discuss it. Any questions on why we're doing this, or yes, Ms. Sheline?
Are these
Or Shippert.
the conflict attorneys, the ones that have a regular stipend from the county?
Correct. So are you talking about the hourly rate?
Now, I'm not talking about the hourly rate. There's, without naming names,
Sure.
3 or 4
Correct. That's what this would be for, the contracts.
for those conflict attorneys.
Correct.
So that's a standard salary that they're getting.
Correct. And the only thing I would add on top of what Mr. Sheline had already said, and I think it was brought up to finance when Judge Ackert was here. I don't believe this $36,000 salary had been increased since I think before Mr. Bivens was sheriff or so. Yeah.
So she's having a hard time finding a replacement. She's going out of county to get conflict attorneys. So
Bob, I'll just add one other thing. Judge Acker did say to us that during the finance committee that she's not looking for a budget adjustment at this point, just the authority to go forward with this. She may or may not have enough in her budget this year. We'll know that when we get a little closer to the end of the budget year, and that's the time that she would come forward needing a budget adjustment if it's needed.
that's a very good point. Thank you, Wendy. Any more discussion? Yes.
I'm just looking at this from the perspective of the claims committee, because those salaries come through claims as an order from the judge. So those orders would be changed then, should this motion be passed. Okay, just want to be clear.
Yep. It'll come through next month if we approve it this month. Any more discussion? If none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. We're gonna go to the bid for the boiler for the new courts building. Mr. Wilson, you want to explain what we've been going through over there and where we need to do, just so everybody's aware of our problems there?
Sure, Greg and his crew have been, we've been trying to limp the boilers through the winter, through all the cold times. We actually fixed one of them. 2 days later, Greg called and told me that the boiler blew up, and I'm like, we just fixed it. And he goes, no, the other one is down now. So in the new courts building, we have 2 boilers that we put out for bid. We had 3 qualified bidders bid on them. The bid for the low bid for 209,800 came in from Loescher HVAC. They have Greg's been in contact with them. They've met all the requirements, all the engineering, stamped engineered drawings for the project. I want to be clear that this is something that needs to be moved forward immediately, if not sooner. But also, this is the 2 boilers in the new courts building. So in the first courts building over there, we still have the original boiler in that building. That's not neither one of these 2. We've been servicing that boiler. That's 43 years old. The boilers we're replacing are much younger than the boilers that's currently over there. But that boiler is in need of being replaced as well. But Greg and his guys are going through and we're doing preventative maintenance on it as much as possible. But I would think we need to move forward on this as quickly as possible.
You gonna put that in a motion form?
Me?
Yep.
All right, I'd like to make a motion that we accept Loescher Heating and Air Conditioning's bid for $209,800 to replace the 2 boilers in the new courts building across the street.
Perfect. Do I have a second? Mr. Nicholson seconds it. Any discussion? Yes, Marilyn.
Knowing how things are in this economy and getting parts and, obtaining the boilers, will they be installed by next fall?
Yeah, the boilers, as soon as we get the contract to them, it'll be 14 to 18 weeks, I believe, to get the boilers. And then the project itself is probably only 2 weeks to put in. Yeah, we would be, but we need to get moving on it right away because the boilers do more than just the heating over there as well. But yes, we've already looked into that and it's about 4 months to get the boilers. So.
Thank you. Yes.
This is an unbudgeted item. Are we taking this out of capital? Does that need to be in the motion or?
Mr. Finance Chair.
It could be. I don't think it's necessary, have to be necessarily in the motion. The treasurer will take it out of capital, but I think there is an intent, a movement that probably will be looking to apply for ARPA money for this expenditure.
The problem with this is that we're waiting on the bids and the bids come in after finance. Is that correct? Or so we didn't get the bids until after finance. So the bids went to executive and we need to move on it because we need to get them ordered for the 4-month out timeframe.
Just another thing is the engineered estimate, we came under $91,200 under the engineered estimate. So as we put engineered estimates together and think through them, we did come under the budget quite a bit from what was discussed.
Yeah, I don't think we have a choice. I think we need to move forward with this and then ARPA will figure that out next month. We've got 4 months to think about it. We just need to get it ordered. Any more discussion? If none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. I'm going to skip L for now and we'll go down to appointments. I got a resolution, reappointment of Randall Ebert and Lori Hillison as trustees of the Ashton Fire Protection District. Do I have a motion to approve that? Katie White, Gene Hudson seconds it. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We'll go to B, the resolution reappointment of Jeffrey Polich as trustee of the Paw Paw Fire Protection District. Do we have a motion? Mr. Copine, Ms. Allen seconds it. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We'll go to A, We'll go down, I guess, to 8. Executive session. I'd entertain a motion to go into executive session. Mr. Book, Mr. Kitson seconds it.